Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. This is NFA Live. Here we are on Thursday once again. We have Guy from Coin Bureau up in the top right. How's it going?
Yeah, good man. How are you?
Pretty good. And then we have Rob from Digital Asset News.
Hello, everybody. Thank
How
you. Thank you. Fantastic. Another great day. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you guys here. Well, we're going to talk about mostly crypto stuff today. It seems like that's where all the excitement is. And so the first question I have is we've never seen an all-time high before the halving, right? I mean, in last cycle, it took until kind of the end of the halving year. So about half a year later, cycle before that, and the cycle before that, we didn't even hit highs until the post-halving years. And so we've never seen this before. So this cycle is certainly throwing us a curveball. I'm curious, do you think that this will be different? At the risk of saying this time is different. Or do you think once again, that would be kind of overthinking it, and why not go with status quo as long as it doesn't seem broken? Rob, where are you on this?
I'm in the camp of it is definitely different, and we took a little peek behind the curtain just a couple of weeks ago, and just said we are, as far as getting to the halving. I think just a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe, we were at 24% from what the price was from the all-time high for the last cycle to 2 months before the halving. And now we've essentially hit it and taken a little bit of a dip back. So when people say this time, it's the worst words you can say, but this time really is different. But the question that I have, and this is, I think, the bigger thing, which we know it's in this one instance, it's different. The question that we have is everything different? Is it going to be this left translated cycle like Bob Lucas talks about? Is it going to be another, and I hate this word, super cycle, which everybody talked about last time, and then I hear the same thing again this time? And is it going to keep going up, just like when people will do a correlation between this and the gold ETF back in 2004 and all the way up to 2016, 18, and then of course it just hit a recent all-time high, I think today, as a matter of fact. So I think that's the bigger question. And I think if you really lay it down and just think about it, you have to ask yourself, what am I here for? Am I here to make profits? Am I here to change the world? Am I here to do great things and help out other countries and get everybody on board and get rid of this dirty, disgusting fiat? Or can I do all those things? And I think for me, it's different than everybody else. So you have to ask yourself what it is. So for me, it's not different. It's not different than what the plan that I put together, which was at some point I'm going to take profits. I'm going to sell some of my Bitcoin. I know it's a very unpopular opinion for some people. I'm going to sell most of my alts, and I'm going to go from there. I'm going to use some indicators that I picked up along the way, and that's it. So, I mean, yeah, it may be different, and yeah, we may go to the moon, and Bitcoin can go to 10 million per Bitcoin. God, please don't clip that. That piece.
Put it on X.
Exactly. Don't clip.
Rob, then you can just say it was AI generated.
Exactly. Did you see my 6 fingers on there? That was AI generated. Come on, it was a fake. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. I don't know, but my plan hasn't changed. And if it really is that next big evolution that we talk about, that's why I don't sell all my crypto. That's why I don't sell all my Bitcoin, because I have a little hodl bag, and if it goes to the moon, we have all outran everybody else in traditional finance. Even if I keep 20%, I'm doing better than most of the billionaires out there. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've been doing pretty well. And as you said earlier, I mean, you've been talking about this strategy for the last year and a half, right? So you're just kind of hey, I don't know if it's different, but I'm just going to stick to what I came up with, a year ago when emotions were not running hot.
Yeah.
Great insight.
Unless, and I'll just say this, unless Bitcoin becomes the reserve currency of the world, or other nation states adopt it, or it becomes even bigger than what it is right now, then I'll definitely change my tune. But we'll see what happens. That's it.
Right. Guy, what about you? I mean, again, we've never seen highs before the halving. Do you think this cycle will continue to throw us curveballs, or is that just some element of us trying to rationalize why this time is different when maybe it's not?
I think there's definitely curveballs ahead of us, because I think the game, if you like, we're just playing a different game now. It's completely changed with these ETFs, and I think most people acknowledge that the ETFs would change the game to an extent. But I think what's caught so many of us out, and me as much as anyone, is just how much the flows into these ETFs and the volume these ETFs are seeing, just how much they've exceeded expectations. And I think we all knew that there was going to be demand for Bitcoin ETFs. There was going to be demand for people to hedge with Bitcoin, for individual investors and institutions to hedge with Bitcoin, if nothing else. But very few, only the most insanely bullish people foresaw anything like this. So it's completely changed. And I think when we were putting together a video we did recently about this sort of just kind of looking at where the market is at the moment, one of the things that really struck me about it was these ETFs, they're now exposed to these passive flows, this automated buying by these institutions, by the likes of pension funds and asset managers and what have you. The sort of automated buying that is pushing the stock market up as well, that is pushing Nvidia ever higher. And you think, well, can this can't go up forever? Nothing goes up forever. But it certainly seems like there's the passive flows that we're seeing now. Bitcoin is exposed to those flows as well. And I think it's interesting that these ETFs have solved kind of two issues. I think they've solved a UX issue that Bitcoin had for retail buyers, and by that I mean the supposedly complicated nature of buying that many people saw of buying Bitcoin. Opening an exchange account, you're getting on Coinbase, sending money to it, getting to grips with self-custody, all that sort of stuff. They don't have to do that anymore. They have access to Bitcoin in a way that they're familiar with and they're comfortable with. So retail have had a UX issue solved, whereas institutions have had legal issues solved, because there were things that there were regulations in place that prevented institutions from holding Bitcoin, investment mandates, fiduciary duties, that sort of thing. And the ETFs have removed those. So you've got a legal issue that's been solved for institutions, a UX issue that's been solved for retail buyers. And I think it's kind of hard to draw parallels with previous cycles when the investor profile, if you like, has just changed so much, at least for BTC. And I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind as well. This has been discussed a lot, hasn't it? The fact that, okay, Bitcoin is seeing these massive inflows. What does that mean for rotation into altcoins, which is the kind of natural next part of the cycle? Obviously, a lot of altcoins are still under kind of regulatory threat. So it's quite possible that the cycle is different this time around. Again, not only have these inflows sort of come way earlier than we expected, but how they then rotate into altcoins may be different as well, because you've got this different investor profile and this different way of holding Bitcoin. That said, though, I think I still think Bitcoin is a kind of gateway drug for crypto, if you like. And I still think there will be a lot of people a lot of individual investors, a lot of retail investors who buy Bitcoin ETFs and see number go up, see a big profit on it. And I think that will tempt a lot of them. I think that will pull a lot of them towards sort of crypto in general. And I think they will be tempted to kind of dabble more in the ecosystem when they see that they can make money with it. So I think I do think it will be different this time around in terms of how the cycle plays out.
So to summarize, you're saying dominance is going higher.
That's it.
It's quite possible. Yeah, it's quite possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like, you know, you're seeing these crazy pumps in altcoins at the moment. I mean, it's fascinating to see altcoins going bananas over the last week or so, isn't it? You know, what does that mean for dominance? Does that say that retail is back? Because there are metrics that suggest. I mean, Ben, you and I were talking about this shortly before we started, weren't there? There are metrics suggesting that retail is starting to come back, which means that, you know, long term that will probably lead to a decline in dominance. But then, you know, again, there's the idea that all the Bitcoin being held by these ETFs is just going to most likely stay there.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of leads into the next question, which is, you know, Bitcoin has put at a new all-time high, but a lot of the other, I mean, I know some new altcoins are certainly running new highs, like the ones that were not here in 2022 and don't necessarily have all that baggage, but you have a lot of altcoins that are still nowhere near the highs, like Polkadot and Avalanche and Cardano, and even one of the stronger ones over the last year, Solana, is still not at all-time highs. You know, Matic, Polygon, Litecoin, XRP. I mean, like, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Like all the sort of these older coins from the last cycle, they haven't hit new all-time highs yet. And I guess, do you think that they will hit them anytime soon? I mean, I'm not asking you specifically to sort of cherry pick any single one, but do you think it's possible that some of those alts will eventually follow Bitcoin to new highs, or will the spot ETFs kind of keep the focus on Bitcoin for a while and maybe push off all-time highs for the altcoins that are going to get them until even much later in the cycle, just as the spotlight stays on Bitcoin? Guy, what do you think about that?
I think, yeah, the spotlight will be on Bitcoin for a while, but I do think it is possible that you know, many altcoins, you know, if you like, older altcoins from last cycle, I think they can see those highs again. But I think what's really different this time around is that, you know, the market has expanded so much. So, I mean, for instance, Solana and Avalanche are really good examples. You know, they emerged during the last cycle. They were seen as, you know, quote unquote Ethereum killers. And that was their, you know, especially in Solana's case, that was its big kind of marketing tagline, you know, an Ethereum killer. That's an easy narrative to follow. That's an easy idea for people to get on board with. And I think that was a big part of what drove it so high. Now, this time around, obviously, Solana's been through a very difficult bear market, but as you know, has been bouncing back, and I think definitely could see new highs, and the same for Avalanche and stuff. But I guess you've now got competition in the form of things like Solana killers. I mean, that you've got things like Sui and Sei and Aptos now, which are, you know, looking to basically do the same thing that Solana does, but better. So, you know, there's a huge amount more competition out there, and that's why I think that although we'll see some alts hit new all-time highs, I think a lot of them, perhaps ones that are maybe 2 or 3 cycles old, that could be, I think that will be trickier for them, because I think there's so much more competition. And it's not to necessarily say that those alts are bad products, but, you know, there's a kind of, these competitors have had the advantage of time and hindsight, and they can now, you know, bringing sort of new tech to the market, and try and improve on where these older ones went. So I don't think it's certainly not a given that all altcoins are going to reach all-time highs. Some, I think, are done, and you only need to scroll down the list on CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, whatever, and you can see the casualties from previous cycles. You know, Rob, you've talked about this a lot as well in the past. You know, these projects that were huge in 2017, for example, and are now basically dead to all intents and purposes. And unfortunately, some of the projects that were big last cycle and the cycle before are probably going to follow that trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, once again, Bitcoin hits new all-time highs first out of, you know, all the all the coins, and a lot of people always assume that the altcoins will, but Bitcoin it shows that it's the king. You know, the cryptoverse is healthy if Bitcoin is healthy and doing well. If altcoins are doing well and Bitcoin's kind of not, then it might imply that something else is going on, that maybe everything's not as it seems. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin's at a new high. Rob, what are your thoughts? Are the last cycle's coin? Again, I'm not talking about, you know, the newer coins this cycle that don't have the baggage that are already putting in new highs. Our last cycle's coins, you think some of those can follow Bitcoin's path?
It's a tricky one, and Guy's right in everything he said, especially with these old coins, because like he talked about, we had said this on the show a couple of weeks ago, where we took a look at the top 53 tokens and coins, and of course Bitcoin, from 2017 to 2021 to see how many actually stayed in the top 53, and it was 11 out of 53 from 2017 to 2021. And there was things that I had totally forgot about, like Bitcoin Gold, Einsteinium. Einsteinium. So like those types of things, no one remembers that stuff.
Don't forget about BBQ coin from 2013, Rob.
Oh, that was huge. And tomato coin,
number 11 at one point, I think.
It was gonna melt faces. You got a diamond hands that. Yeah, so like stuff like that, you get 11 out of 53. However, if we take a look at the top of around November 8th, November 9th, 2021 to today, out of the top 53, you're looking at over 60% are still on the top. So will they, but Ben, you brought up a good point, which is those have not hit their all-time highs. I mean, even in Solana, as hot as it went down, because what was the top of Solana? 260 somewhere, 250?
Yeah, it was still like almost twice the current price, I think.
Yeah. And it went, and that's the thing, like when we take a look at these alts, we take a look at it and go, well, it hasn't hit its all-time high, which is true. But it's one of those things where you got to remember, like Bitcoin took a tumble. I think it dropped 77% from its all-time high of 69,000 down to 15,700. But then if we take a look at the alts like Solana, you're talking like 90, 93%, 95, 99% for ICP and stuff like that. So if you were brave enough to go into the slums and pick those up when nobody wanted to, you're living high right now. But you had to actually get those at that point. And like we talk about as far as risk, people don't want to take that much risk. So if you want to, like save your mental health, it would have just been easy. It would have just been easier just to go into Bitcoin and kind of stay with it for a while. But this next cycle, just like we saw in the last one in 2021, when no one knew what Solana was. And then Luna came out of nowhere, and of course it crashed. Decentraland, a host of other ones that are escaping me right now in this Goldilocks time frame, which is right before the halving, during the halving, and like 2 or 3 months afterwards, is a Goldilocks period. Like maybe the next layer 1, layer 0, new different project, it hasn't even come out yet, and we haven't really seen it. And that's the thing that pretty much gets me. And that's why I try to diversify as much as I possibly can, but I still say 70% of Bitcoin. Lastly, I will just say, as far as like what's the next thing as far as like alts, if you guys go to CoinGecko, click on categories, and then you can search by, actually, let me just show you real quick. I always like to do this because it just shows just how crazy things are.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you go, CoinGecko, which it's up today, which is great. Click on categories on the previous one. And see right here where it says like, let's see, top gainers. So let's just throw it down by 7 days. This is the narrative. If you're going to look at narratives, just look at this. Gamings. We talked about this a lot. In the last 7 days, it's up 1,300%. Does that mean that it's been up that massively the whole time? No. But I'm just saying, if you do this week by week, you'll kind of see like a theme. Meme coins, for some reason, that could be cat themed or fractionalized or meme coins. 194%, 78%. Options, dog themed coins, 73%. Theta for some reason. Sports, gaming covenants. I mean, it just goes all over the place. But like, I still think that Web3. What's up, Guy?
How is it that meme coins are now, that category is so wide, they have to subdivide it? You've got regular meme, and then you've got cat themed and dog themed.
Because that's why this market
they have
is crazy.
Strong communities.
They have exactly, Ben. They have strong communities, but let's do this. Let's take this from currency. Let's put this in Bitcoin, right? Okay, okay, you got me on this one. On 7 days, it did do pretty good, but actually it hasn't really. Artificial intelligence. The thing is, this is not fitting my narrative, damn it. The thing is, as
Don't
time
worry,
goes on,
we won't edit it out.
no, you shouldn't. The thing is, which leads my last point, really, in all honesty, is that there are altcoins are going to run, they're going to rip, they're going to be great, but they're so risky. And for me, that's why, like, I know people will say you got to, you know, this is what the same thing last time. You got to diamond hands this. A lot of these projects don't do anything. They have no utility. It's just vaporware, as Guy told me before. And it really comes down to this: what really moves the markets? Unfortunately, it's hype, it's speculation, and greed, shag. So that's what I say. Hopefully, after the halving, we'll see a real proper altcoin run.
I saw Lynn Alden. You guys know Lynn Alden, I'm sure. I saw they said that the fact that meme coins are pumping like they are suggests that the Fed is not as tight as they think they are in terms of monetary policy. It's sort of like, you know, I'll take things that you don't see happen during tight monetary policy for 400, Alex, right? And one of those is you don't see meme coins pumping, you know, thousands of percent theoretically, right? Theoretically.
She has a good point, actually. That's a lot of gambling.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting how, you know, we're at 5.5% and the meme coins are pumping like it's like we're at 0% rates, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating.
Mind you, that's if you subscribe to the idea that meme coins aren't necessarily being bought exclusively by retail. You know, I think this is again something that we speculated on. It's quite possible that there are, you know, big crypto whales out there sitting on absolutely massive Bitcoin profits, who are just, and you know, they can do that. That crypto is that sort of market. They can be like, right, let's make memes run. Let's start buying Pepe or, you know, whatever it is. So I think, I think Lynn Alden makes a good point there, but I think it's worth remembering that the crypto market is a very, you know, there's a lot going on that we don't really see very much of. There's a lot more beneath the surface, and I think whales, you know, play a big part in that. So there's a more than decent chance, I think, that this recent altcoin rally has been, if not completely driven, but very much stoked by whales sort of going in and causing mayhem.
Right.
True.
Sort of seems like we have two big narratives coming up, and they're only about 1 to 2 months away. So I do want to at least touch on that. I mean, obviously, there's the Bitcoin halving, and we already, you know, we had the spot ETFs already. The halving is next month, but for Ethereum, we know that it is. I mean, it's still holding its own to some degree against Bitcoin, and I wonder, what do you guys think about this spot ETF for ETH? I mean, Rob, we talked before over the last several years about, you know, the Bitcoin ETF, and it got delayed so much for years before it finally got approved. Do you think that the spot ETF for Bitcoin being approved kind of lays the groundwork for the one for Ethereum to be approved at this point? Or do you think it's more likely that it's going to be one of those things where the SEC just says, no, we're not, you know, that they give some BS reason as to why it won't be, and then we ended up having to wait, like, you know, another year, another 2 years, maybe another cycle before you actually get that?
Well, I'm not obviously the ETF expert. I was very wrong in the last call.
I'm saying that you were right about it for like 6 years.
Yeah, but no one remembers those 6 years, Ben. They only remember the last 3 months, and that's what I always try to like disarm before anybody's like, why are we asking Rob about ETFs? He's totally wrong. But on this one, I mean, I've said before, I think there's a good chance, and of course the people that were behind the spot Bitcoin ETF who called it right. I think they put it at 45%. Correct me in the comment section about, you know, the probability of a Bitcoin ETF or a spot Ethereum ETF being pulled through. Hester Pierce has come out and said, look, we have precedents now, and we're going to take a look at that and apply that to the spot ETF for Ethereum. However, there was this post from Eleanor Terrett, and she's got the CFTC chair, Benham, and he's talking about how him and Gary Gensler and the SEC are working in tandem to figure out essentially what Ethereum actually is. He goes, right now we have it classified as a commodity. Chair Gensler believes it is a security, and we're going back and forth on this. And of course, if it is done through as a security, then everything is really gets undone, especially with the centralized exchanges. And I took a look at that. I'm like, that cannot be great. But I mean, maybe it'll come through. I'm not. I don't really have much insight besides those 3 points. Maybe Guy has something for us.
Yeah, Guy, what
Sure.
do you know? Last time, I think Jessica was talking a little bit about it and saying that the odds were at like 45%. I think it was 45%. Yeah, where do you stand on the matter?
I think I'm less bullish on it than I was. I think when the Bitcoin ETFs finally got approved, I was sort of like, well, I mean, I still think it's a matter of when and not if. I think it will happen eventually, but my time horizon has lengthened a little bit. I think there are still huge, like Rob was alluding to, there are still questions around ETH's status as a security or not. And I think the important thing to think about in this regard is yield, because ever since Ethereum transitioned to proof of stake, I think that's secure. And the SEC, this is something the SEC sort of flag. I mean, it's very telling that Gary Gensler came out and made those comments about ETH being a security on the day of the merge back in September 22, wasn't it? So, and of course now, ETH is something that you can earn a yield from. And interestingly, this is why, this is one of the reasons why Vanguard didn't list the Bitcoin ETFs. Apparently, this is something I only learned recently. Vanguard's model is, and for a long time has been, that it provides ETFs for assets that earn a yield. So typically that's dividend stocks. But Ethereum, there is a yield there. You can stake it and earn 4% or whatever. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is more truly a commodity. There's no yield to be had. You hold it and that's it. So I think the fact that you can earn a yield from ETH, I think that leaves that question of whether or not it's a security very much up in the air. And I think the SEC will be much more. Will fight this, I guess, just as much really as they fought the Bitcoin ETFs. But I think perhaps they're on slightly firmer ground from this. And of course, remember those Bitcoin ETFs, they squeaked through. Right. It was Gary. It was, what was it, 2-1? Gary had to do the casting vote, and I'm almost certain that he wasn't at all happy about that. But he realised that it's you either do it now or just spend the rest of your life in court until you do it. So, but I think the SEC will fight the ETH ones more, and they will eventually lose. Maybe it'll take Grayscale taking them to court again, taking one for the industry, taking one for the team. But I think perhaps by May, which is when the next deadlines are, that I think may be a little optimistic. Of course, I hope I'm wrong, but I think the SEC will fight this one pretty hard.
It's fascinating that you said that they not the SEC, but was it Vanguard?
Vanguard, yeah.
It's fascinating the idea that they may be more likely to list an Ethereum one than a Bitcoin one because of the yield. Like, that's not something that I think I had even remotely considered as a possibility.
Me neither.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the problem is they don't really care. They just wanted, if it's a security, if it's not, it needs to be something. It needs to be designated something so that if the spot ETFs actually occur, maybe they'd be more likely to list it. We just got to get over the hurdle of, do they actually get the spot ETFs for Ethereum? And I guess if they get it for Ethereum at some point, which presumably they will, I mean, that would sort of then definitely open the gates to, I mean, just about everything else, right? I mean,
right.
In crypto. I mean, if you can open it for Ethereum, then it seems like there's so many other ones that you could then open it to as well. So
But-
maybe there will be future cycle narratives for
Yeah.
a lot of the altcoins.
But think of this: if guys right and they're going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting, that, I mean, what would that do for like an altcoin rally? Because think of all the ERC20 tokens that are out there. It is a lot. Think of all the value that's actually locked up. It is a ton. It is billions of dollars. And they're going to say, nope, it's a security. I wish we would just get it out the way and just say, okay, this is a commodity, this is a security, this is a currency, and then we can go and actually, the exchanges can go to the actual exchange or to the SEC and say, okay, here's what you want. You want the paperwork, you want to register, that's fine. But stop screwing around with us and making us delay because you're holding up a whole sector, and there's a ton of investors that are getting screwed out because of you guys. So I just think that if we can just do that, then that'd be great. But if not, because it's not only going to suck because people say, well, what about Solana? Solana has yield. Well, what about Chainlink? Chainlink has yield. Well, Chainlink's on ERC20 as well. And everything else you think of, if that goes down, it's gonna be kind of painful.
What do you guys? One of the, and sort of staying with crypto and thinking about all these different cryptocurrencies, how do you research a cryptocurrency? For me, like I feel like I'm just a dinosaur at this point, and kind of just happy with Bitcoin. And anytime I hear you guys talk about all these altcoins and all the fundamental, I'm just like, what are they talking about? Because there's just so much that's been developed, I think, in such a short period of time, and that I just haven't kept up with, I think, nearly as well as you guys have. So when you are like looking to get into an altcoin, where do you start? Like what do you do? Either of you can start.
That big guy.
I don't mind leading off on this one, because we're putting together at the moment our DYOR video for 2024. So I've been sort of getting back in touch with the process of this. I mean, I think once you've done this, if you like, the basics, once you've kind of looked at the tokenomics and what niche it's in and all that sort of stuff, because I think once you've got a fair bit of experience, you can spot crap tokenomics a way off. And once you've established that it's not some dead coin from a previous cycle or whatever, once you've identified a project that seems to be on the surface of it worth diving into deeper, then the place that we always start with is the founders. Like who put this thing together? Who dragged this thing kicking and screaming into the world? Who are they? What's their background? What do they have experience in? What have they worked on before? And we usually go, YouTube is a great resource because we go and listen to interviews with founders. And one of the ways that we sort of, did still do our research is that we will go back and look at a video with 20 views from 2018 that, with a founder of a particular project, when they're interviewed, because it's so revealing. Not only do you get a sense of the person themselves, the people themselves behind these projects, but you also get a sense, how well do they explain the project that they're working on? Are they articulate about it? Can they explain? I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? Of if you truly understand something, then you can explain it to a 5-year-old or whatever it is. So, are they able to do that? Do they give a cogent and understandable rundown of what it is that they're building? And you also get a sense as well of how the project has shifted. If you watch an interview from 2017 or whatever, from the earliest days of the project, and they say, well, we're trying to do this and we're trying to do this and we're trying to do this, and then you jump forward to now, it's like, are they still doing those things, or have they pivoted entirely? Are they doing a different thing now? Have they specialized? Are they still? This is something we notice a lot with projects, is that nowadays I think that projects are sort of figuring out that they need to specialize. And I think the days of these projects coming along and saying, yeah, we're going to be there, yeah, we're going to replace the entire, we're going to replace the entire financial system or whatever, or we're going to become, we're going to do a bit of everything. Whatever you want to do, you can do it on our layer one. Whatever you want to build. I think those days are coming to an end, because specialization is becoming more and more important in this increasingly crowded market. So short answer is yes, start with the people who made it. And if you get a good vibe from them, if they seem committed, if they have a good background and things like that, then that's generally says to us this is worth pursuing.
Yeah,
Solid.
I think the founder is a great place to start. Bet on, it's kind of like betting on the person, right?
Yeah.
Find the person. If you find the, it's kind of like the whole, you know, how a lot of people will bet on entrepreneurs. You know, like they'll just say, well,
Right.
I don't know exactly what they're creating, but I believe in that person, and I think they have what it takes to create something that will change the world. I think that's a great mentality. Rob, what do you use if you wake up one day and you're like, you know, there's 50,000 altcoins out there? Where do you begin?
Well, first of all, just before I talk about that, it's what you just said about the founders guy and Ben is exactly spot on, because look at how well Cardano has done because of, I mean, people love it. People like it, the community, right? Ben, the community. And of course, Charles Hoskinson has been like that face, that figurehead. And when things go down or things don't work, he is the first person there. I know some people say, well, you know, Cardano's trash and whatever else. Hey, I'm not here to talk about like what is the best chain of all time. But if you're taking a look at like founders who have done a great job, I mean, Charles Hoskinson did a fantastic job and continues to do one. But to take a look at like altcoins is difficult because let's be honest, most of them, like Guy just said, they can't do anything. And they say they're going to replace the entire financial system, and they're not. It's just how it is. When I take a look at it, well, in the beginning, I used to take a look at what I would call the cut. Will it make the cut? Which is how big is the community? What's the utility? What does it do? Is it a Me Too product? What is the team? Like, you know, Guy just talked about. And what are the tokenomics? Are they trash? Do they want to go? So I use that base and go from there. Nowadays, when I take a look at it, I take a look at that, but I also say to ask myself, how much hype is here? How big is everything going? Because let's be honest. I mean, like I said, hype and speculation and greed moves the whole market. And especially for these new projects, I can guarantee you it's the same thing that's going to keep repeating and repeating. It's the same deal. So it depends on, if you're into altcoins, there's two different ways to look at it. You can, you know, really go into it and get behind it and really do your right due diligence and make the best decision for yourself and hang on to that for the long haul because it's a great project. Or you can be a degenerate gambler and just say like, okay, what's the hype and what's this and that, and then go from there. But that's like a small percentage, I would say, of my portfolio, 1% to 2% maybe of like those degen plays. But I will say, and then let me this is the last, I swear to God, it's the last share I'll do of my screen. Here's a prime example. So I have a membership at Coin Bureau Club. Thanks. And it's great. And like when Guy talks about the research that he does, like it's far and away above what I can possibly do because Guy, you guys have a whole team. And that's your whole thing, right? So when I took a look at this, I just want to share like with these things that you guys did, like I would never have known about Akash, which you did in November, Toncoin and Pith on December, Games with December. If you take a look at it, how it's done so far, this is Akash. When you covered it over here was like $1. And now it's $5. Claros, another one, it's from like, I mean, they all did well. Realio, Metis, they did great, except for your awful pick of Rollbit. But but the big thing I want to talk,
the altcoin casino, right?
Exactly. The big thing I want to say is this: there's I talk about AI, how big it's going to be, and you have to be a little bit wary. And there was a great post I talked about just yesterday, how Fetch AI secured $100 million for infrastructure investment. They're going to take a ton and they're going to actually deploy their NVIDIAs, their H200s and GPUs to create this platform. And it's going to be essentially in this warehouse. And that's what it's going to do. And when I was talking about it, I'm like, that seems very centralized. And then I went back and Guy just did a video 5 days ago on Fetch AI. And I'm just going to tell you right now, Guy, thank you for doing that video because it's so in depth. I sold my Fetch after watching that. Not all of it, but it made me quite weary on the project. I know people, it's not going to be very popular because I can see people in the comment section, they like Fetch. But I'm just telling you, do your research. And if you can't do your research, then get somebody who can. And that one made me like, this might not be the greatest play of all time. That's all I'll say.
I would add a couple of things. You know, it's always great when you find someone who does unbiased reviews. And I think Guide, you know, I think they do a great job of that. The problem is that, like, you know, a lot of people will only put out like very positive, optimistic views on every single thing, and then, you know, and then everyone loves it in the short term, and then like 6 months later, everyone's like, "What the hell, man? You know, like, why didn't you tell me that?" It's like, well, hey, man, it was up 100x. Like, you know, like, I mean, hey, maybe it's going to drop too. But no, I think it's great to have unbiased reviews, and if you know, the more of those people can find, I think the better, right? And also there's this idea too that, like, a lot of times people say, well, like, if I don't own the altcoin, then it's a scam, right? So, you know, like, it's sort of like if you either with them or against them, and yeah, I mean, I would say it's not always like that, right? You know, just because you don't own it doesn't mean it's a scam, and maybe the one that you own is a scam, you know, and you just don't know yet. And so it's just something for everyone to think about, you know, when the emotions are high and the hype is high, everything goes up. And then so make sure you find someone who's doing unbiased stuff. I think both of these guys are trying to do the best job as they can at providing unbiased reviews. So if you guys could ask some questions in the chat, we only have one more question. We'll try to keep it brief because it's more about the boring macro stuff that no one really cares about. But it's true. I mean, it's true, you know. And so yeah, if you guys have questions for either Rob or Guy, go ahead and put them in the chat. Last question. You know, Powell was testifying before Congress yesterday, and they grilled him a lot. And it's always, I mean, I watched like a little bit of it, and then after like the first like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm like, all right, this is just the same old stuff that we've been hearing for, you know, the last 2 years. But one of the things that he was really pressed on was whether there will be a soft landing, you know, and this has been something that we've been talking about, and everyone's been talking about for forever, right? Really, ever since the yield curve inverted, the question has been, will there be a soft landing or not? And so I guess, like, you know, what are you looking for, right? I mean, do you agree with him? Do you disagree with him? Obviously, there's no way to really know. So I guess what signs would you be looking for that it's not a soft landing? What signs would you be looking for that it is a soft landing? I guess, how do you navigate that when right now it certainly seems like all the momentum, right? There's been so much momentum for months now. And so I guess that's the question is what can actually stop the train if everything looks so great? Like if the spot ETF flows just look, I mean, they're going up almost on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So what are your views on that, Rob? How do you view Powell's response where he said that the U.S. is not in a recession, and he also said, and it doesn't look like there's any short-term risk of the U.S. falling into a recession either.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, we all know recession's coming. What I do is I'm not going to throw my screen, but Ben, could you do me a favor and throw up the dashboard for the macro or the risk factors? Because when I think about this, I'm like, he could be, you know, Jerome could be right. It could be a soft recession, and we shouldn't be, but then that inner conspiracy, you know, really gets to me, and I'm like, hold on, this is a presidential election year. Maybe he's lying about these numbers because he wants to bolster up Biden. But then I take a look. This is why I like your site, because it's got all the things, and I'm taking a look at these indicators themselves, and I'm just like, well, I mean, the only thing that I can really see, and I think we had jolts not too long ago, job openings. But the big thing is the treasury yield. And if you can click on the treasury yield spreads, that's the one that concerns me right now because it's almost maxed out.
And it's been maxed out for a while.
And of course, like when we take a look at it, you know, as time goes on for the yield spreads, I mean, once it uninverts all the way, it inverts and uninverts, and then of course we hit a recession. And that isn't there yet. So what I'm hoping for is that, first of all, if we do get 2 continuous quarters of GDP decline and we do go into recession, hopefully it's after or like towards the end of our bull run, because it's coming. We know it's coming. It has to actually happen. It's just too hot. The crypto market is going to hit all-time highs. The traditional markets already hit all-time highs for S&P 500. Precious metals have already hit all-time highs with gold. I mean, you can't keep going up like that. It's just impossible. So we'll see how bad it actually is, but I'm just hoping. And then I take a look at the indicators. Maybe we got a long runway, but we'll see.
That's true. Out of all the indicators on that dashboard, the only one that is flashing worrying signs right now is the Treasury yield spreads. Everything else looks relatively, subdued in terms of the risk. But I mean, of course, all that stuff can change relatively quickly. All right, guys, let's move on to what some of the questions you guys have, because we got about maybe 13 minutes left. So let me go see what questions you guys have. If you guys have some good ones that I think Rob and Guy would be happy to answer. So some of these questions we kind of already touched on. Because someone says, if we've already hit an all-time high, do you think this cycle could end earlier than usual? I would say just go to the beginning of the video, and they answer these questions. You see the same thing, right? How will your plans change? Actually, that's a question. How would your plans change if it's left translated? If at all.
No, it doesn't. I'm just using certain indicators to kind of guide me through. And my biggest thing is to not screw this up like I did last time, and to take the profits like I was supposed to, instead of trying to overthink too much. And I'm going to exit way before the top. I know it. And that's really all I can say.
Yeah.
Guy, what do you?
I think I would be. I wouldn't change much other than really adjust my time horizon. I've been thinking very long term recently, and I'm now having to think. Actually, maybe I need to bring those sell targets forward a little bit. So the thing that it tells me is that you just cannot be complacent in this game. You can't necessarily go on past cycles, even though that has been a reliable way to do it, because the rug will get pulled out from under you, kind of like it has like it has with these ETFs. That's the wrong terminology to use, because it's kind of the opposite of a rug pull. But you see what I mean? Like everything's been changed so much that you have to sort of get out of that rut of thinking and think, well, actually, things could move a lot faster than I'm expecting. So a lot of that is just trying to be prepared for that.
Well, and anytime the market does drop 50%, that's when we're all in it for the tech, right?
That's right, man. We're all in it for the tech.
That's how we get through those times, because you're in it for the tech.
Absolutely.
When the market goes down. Here's a question. This is a good question, because it kind of goes back to something that we talked about earlier with what Lynn Alden said, was that during tighter monetary policy, if you are at sufficiently restrictive levels, you wouldn't expect meme coins to be pumping the way they are. And so I guess it kind of raises the question. Everyone's talking about rate cuts. The Fed has been pretty clear that they've reached its terminal rate. I mean, is there a chance that the economy just kind of slowly heats back up, and instead of talking about rate cuts, we're all of a sudden talking about hikes again? Anyone have any opinion on that?
I mean, if you see inflation go up, I mean, what can they do, right? They don't want to be 1970s Burns to lead into Volcker for the chair. They're like, if that happens, then they're going to overcompensate. That's what the Fed does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's been said before, hasn't it, that Powell has no intention of repeating earlier mistakes. Volcker is very much his the man he looks up to. So yeah, you couldn't rule him out. I would love it if Powell came out and said, at his next press conference, and said, I've been keeping a very close eye on the market cap of Dog With Hat, which is now larger than that of Spirit Airlines.
Oh my God!
We've decided you guys need a hike.
You guys need a dose of reality, and here it comes. 50 basis
Only
points.
when Dog With Hat market cap declines below that of one of the US's largest airlines will even think about bringing rates down.
Dude, that's an indicator waiting to happen on Ben's site.
I would say, like, I actually think if they raised rates again, I think it would be a mistake, honestly. I think we're actually in sufficiently restrictive territory. I just think that it's not about getting to the current rate. It's also about staying at the current rate, because a lot of these companies haven't actually had to roll over their debt yet to higher rates, right? So we're not actually living. A lot of these companies are not really operating in a higher interest rate environment because they're still, living off the loans that they had back when we were at low interest rates.
Right.
If you look at all the sort of the labor market data, save the unemployment rate, like, it is weakening. Hires are going down, quits are going down, openings are going down. The rates are having the desired effect. I just think it's a matter of time, before you actually see softening in the labor market. And, the thing with interest rates is when the Fed cuts, and everyone, people talk about, well, if they cut, that's bullish for stocks, or if they cut, it's bearish for stocks. It depends on why they're cutting, right? So like in 2019, they cut and it was bullish for stocks. In 2008 and 2000, they cut and it was bearish for stocks. And I think the reason is because if they're cutting because they waited too long, it's bearish for stocks, right? If they're seeing weakness in the labor market, and that's what's causing them to cut, is bearish. If they're cutting before weakness in the labor market is observed, then it's bullish for stocks, right? So I think it just depends on what happens there with the labor market and how long it takes them to actually cut rates.
Yeah, good point. Higher for longer.
They've been telling us that forever, and no one wants to believe it.
That's right.
Ow. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Someone says, Rob is awesome. Not to screw this up like I did last time. Truth.
Oh yeah, follow me for more outtakes like that. I do those things all the time.
Can you retail really afford to use ETH? I've seen some funny posts recently about everyone's talking once again about how expensive everything's getting to like send crypto and stuff, and it kind of does raise that same question. Have we reached the level of maturity in the crypto space where it's really prime time for the entire world, or is that still ways off?
Guy, do you use ETH a lot or no?
Not a huge amount, but I mean, I'll often go on MetaMask, for example, to kind of see what the swap rates are, what the gas fees are, because I think that gives a really useful indication of what's going on. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy at the moment, and I do think that will be a significant barrier for retail. They go, well, hang on, if I want to buy this thing, I've only got $100 and I've got to spend 70 of it on gas. Why on earth would I do that? And I think it's bad for the look of the industry as well, because it's such a pain point, isn't it? And it's something that can be so easily picked up on by crypto's critics, and they've got a point. Like it's crazy. Okay, like you can go and if you wanted, you could go and trade meme coins on Solana and not pay those fees. But I mean, Ethereum is the kind of standard bearer. Ethereum is the biggest L1 by a long way. So until that is fixed, that is a barrier, and it's a bad look for the industry, definitely.
Dude, can I show you something?
Sure.
Look at this. Guy had a good point, so I threw up my MetaMask. Can you see that?
Is that 190?
That's the fee.
That's what always is. I see someone posted this on X yesterday, and I was like, the future is here.
I just did that. So I know, like, people say, but you got to use the layer 2s and get. Yeah. I'm like, if it's available, sure. I mean, I'll use Polygon, I'll use something else, but if you're doing Ethereum, it's useless.
Well, that's the problem too, is that like a lot of people, if you're new to crypto, you might not go straight into the weeds and even learn what all these things even mean. Like, a lot of people aren't going to know what is even a layer 2, So in order to really reach sort of the retail investors where they are, it seems like you would have to make it so that the largest cryptocurrencies are a bit more friendly. I mean, $200. I mean, that's a modest trip to the grocery store. right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and then like there's that. But you know what's weird though? If you use your centralized exchange and kind of transfer Ethereum off or ERC20 tokens, it's not as bad. I don't know if they're using if they're batching everything because it's much slower, but it's like for like Coinbase to send Ethereum or ERC20, it's like $9-10, which isn't great, but it's not as bad as what we just saw.
Did you guys see? Here's a question about the administration potentially selling your Bitcoin. I saw a headline.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was it the NSA or someone that like sold some Bitcoin? Did you guys see that?
Guy knows.
Yeah, they sold $1 billion worth. Or they
no, they sold like $1 billion. That was fun.
No, didn't they move $1 billion worth?
I don't know.
There was some US government Bitcoin on the move recently. That's for sure.
Do you think they're paying taxes to themselves?
That's a good one. No, they are not.
Maybe. Yeah, this is something that because in the video that we did about the state of the market at the moment, like we talked about this idea that Bitcoin on exchanges is running low, and there is talk of a supply shock. If these ETF inflows continue, and it's worth bearing in mind, like last week, Bank of America and Wells Fargo, that was the week they first started offering these ETFs to their clients. So there's a lot more, there are still a lot of investors out there who don't have access yet, which suggests that these inflows could continue. They could continue to grow. The supply of Bitcoin on exchanges is running out. Michael Saylor keeps buying it. Everyone keeps buying it. The big holders after the exchanges is the US government, 200K, 200K Bitcoin, $14 billion worth. Yeah, I mean, I think, and the US government, like, I guess if they see prices going up the way they keep doing, it would make sense to sell, I guess. But
I mean, it's crazy when we had that big dip from 69 to 60, I thought more REITs or more of the ETFers would sell. But if you take a look at the inflows for yesterday for the ETF, BlackRock had 281 million. And the outflow from Grayscale was 276, but it was a positive 332 between Fidelity and Bitwise and ARK and everything else. So even like I thought that they would get scared and run, but I was wrong, and they stuck around. So, and then what you just said, Guy, maybe more price appreciation of Bitcoin dominance is on its way.
Yeah, no, I was actually curious how the ETFers would react to a larger drawdown in price, like basically like a flash drop of 10-15%.
Yeah,
and it seems like it's continued. I'd be curious, at some point if you get like a 30% drop, how will they react, right? Will the flows keep coming in? And that could be telling as to where we go this cycle. Someone wants to know, can we get more Bitcoin dominant videos? I don't know. I mean, I told Altcoin Daily he'd have 2 million subs if his name. I told him that if he renamed his channel to Bitcoin Dominance Daily. I feel like I'm doing my part. I don't know about you guys, but all right.
I know your last one was over an hour, I think.
The funny thing is they're all basically the same video. I mean, I could literally just upload the same video from a month ago and no one would even know it's the same, Well, I guess the only difference is the price of Bitcoin will be different, so maybe they would know.
But then you got to get that really flashy thumbnail. Whoever does your thumbnails, Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. What other questions? All right, well, it's already 10 o'clock, so why don't we go ahead and wrap it up there. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Guy or Rob, links to their channels are in the description below. I believe next week we'll be on Rob's channel, and we'll just do this every week, no matter what, whether it's bull market, bear market, kangaroo market, we'll be here doing the same stuff. So make sure you guys subscribe to their channels. Again, Guy has he also has his website too, and the Coin Bureau Club. Make sure you guys check that out, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.